You're listening to the Trade Show Insights Podcast, Season 20, Episode 1. I'm your host and exhibit marketing strategist, Marlis Arnold, bringing you tools to improve your exhibit results. On today's episode, brought to you by the Exhibit Marketers Cafe, we're talking about some of the most common challenges and issues that exhibitors are dealing with today, and where do we go from here? Well, I'm excited to have my guest today because this is the third appearance for her on Trade Show Insights. So she is definitely a well-known name around TSI. So I'm going to introduce her real quick in case you aren't familiar with Jessica Sibila. She is a seasoned marketer and social impact professional who blends a unique collection of experiences in event marketing, community engagement, philanthropy, and corporate branding. She has over 20 years experience driving the development of strategic events and social impact programs for leading brands in the natural and organic industry. She's a CTSM, which is Certified Trade Show Marketer, a CMP, Certified Meeting Planner, and holds certifications in corporate social responsibility from Boston College and the University of Colorado. Jessica is also the executive director of the Exhibitor Advocate, a nonprofit trade association dedicated to amplifying the voice of exhibitors, which we're going to hear a lot more about today. Welcome back to Trade Show Insights, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me, Marlis. I'm so excited to be here for the third time.
Yes. I believe you are my first third-time guest. So
I love it. I'm so excited about it.
A very elite club.
So it's great.
All right. Well, what I want to talk about today is recently the Exhibitor Advocate released a report, the state of the exhibit and event industry, specifically geared towards, shall we say, exhibitor challenges and where we go from here. So tell us a little bit about the report, kind of the background, where that came from.
Yeah, the background is that we have long heard from exhibitors that they have challenges, and we wanted to really dig in, not just to what the challenges are, but what is driving those challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And so we partnered with Evolio Marketing and conducted this research in July through September of 2024. And the research that came out was the state of the event industry from the perspective of exhibit and event marketers. And we looked at a number of different things, from what is driving, what are the what's the number one challenge for exhibitors, among other things, what is driving those challenges, what is their sentiment of exhibiting, and in particular, sentiment towards show organizers or other parties, and how are they planning their programs for 2025. It allows us to have a little bit of insight into maybe what's happening in the future.
Well, and like you said, some of the challenges are not really new. They're just maybe growing challenges, or should I say more exasperating challenges?
Yes. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit. So the exhibit marketers that you surveyed, they're not necessarily newbies. I mean, they're people that have been around. They've been there, done that. They know what's going on. And so you're really getting a pulse on how they're seeing the industry shift, right?
Yeah, that's right. The respondents to the survey on average had about 16 years in their event career. So these are generally more seasoned exhibit marketers who have an understanding of the ecosystem. And what they told us was that their number one challenge is cost and budgeting.
Mm-hmm.
88% of the respondents said that cost and budgeting was the number one challenge. The second challenge that was commented on was measuring results at 57%. So these are two challenges that we hear all the time, but it's interesting to us that there's such a gap between number one and two.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and they relate to each other as well, because their costs are going up and they're having trouble measuring, and so they're having trouble justifying going back to these shows. And I'm hearing this from exhibitors. I'm hearing exhibitors say it's like, we're going to scale back on the number of shows we're doing, or we're going to scale back on our booth space this year or whatever, because they can't, the costs are just getting astronomical. Yeah. Yes. And in fact, on the survey that you did, or the budget breakdown that you have in the survey, in the report, which, by the way, we'll link to the report, and also you did a webinar to kind of summarize all of this. So we'll link to the replay of that in the show notes as well. Great. But just to get the exhibit space, to rent the exhibit space and get all the show services is almost 50% of the budget now.
Yes, that's right. It doesn't leave a lot of room to market yourself and to present your brand in the way that you want to.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, ultimately, the space and the services, neither one are leading to ROI. I mean, the space may be a little bit just based on how big or how little your space or where it is or that kind of thing. But ultimately, those are not the results drivers. That's what I've spent, as you know, I've spent over a quarter century teaching exhibitors now. And you got to spend the money on the marketing, the designing the booth, training your staff. Those are the things that are going to really give you results. And if 50% of your budget is just sucked up right away into these two things that are, pretty much mandatory, but not driving results, well, then what do you do? So let's talk a little bit about what are the exhibitors saying? How are they responding to these challenges?
There is a lot of scrutiny on exhibiting budgets these days. I think we've hit a tipping point for the leadership of our companies, where the budgets have now gotten so high for these shows that leadership is finally looking at them and comparing them to other marketing channels, questioning what the value is of this particular channel in comparison to others. Right. And when an exhibit marketer can't justify the spend with an ROI that's really clear, it becomes very difficult to have that conversation with your leadership. So leaders are starting to ask whether or not the events are necessary. What are we getting from it? And we're hearing from exhibitors that they are making choices about their programs to address these rising costs. In the research, what you'll see is that exhibitors had selected a number of different solutions that they are putting into place to address the rising costs. Mm-hmm. Number one is that they're scaling back their presence. Not a lot of detail on exactly what that means, but when you hear some of these other things, it makes you realize that they're scaling back on everything. They are sending fewer staff to a show. And that's super detrimental to the show organizer, because if you send fewer staff, the attendee experience is diminished. And the show organizer needs to understand that that is a choice that's affecting a lot of different areas of their show, right? Not in a positive way.
Yeah.
They are reevaluating their budget and their event strategy, and exhibitors are scaling back their sponsorships and decreasing the number of shows that they go to. And what's interesting to us is that when you think about where the revenue goes for show services, right? Mm-hmm. That is to all of the third-party suppliers that are providing services to the show. That's where the revenue is going. The solutions that exhibitors are putting into place is affecting the revenue of the show organizer.
Right.
It is doing nothing to address the show service costs. And so the exhibitor advocate believes that this is critical for show organizers to understand, because if show organizers don't start negotiating on behalf of their exhibitors, they are the ones that stand to lose the revenue in this scenario. And
Yeah.
we're not talking about every show, and we're not talking about every single exhibitor, right? It's about 50%. But 50% is a huge portion of your business.
Well,
And
yeah,
that
exactly.
deserves some scrutiny by the show organizer.
Well, and the other thing I'm noticing too is it's getting to be next to impossible for a small company, a startup, new exhibitors to make their presence on the show floor because it is, I mean, here's a small company, they want to go try out a show and they're looking at 25, 30 grand minimum, probably way more than that just to do a 10 by 10. And, so how many startups have that kind of money to throw as a huge risk, not knowing if they're going to even get any ROI out of it?
Yeah, and
So
how do you
it's,
stand out in that crowd
yeah,
when you have to put every dollar you have into just being in your booth? There's no extra money for marketing or sponsorships or
right.
differentiating yourself beyond your 10 by 10 space.
Yeah. And if they're spending all that money just to be there, they're probably not spending the money to have a great high quality booth display. They may be throwing something. I talked to somebody recently, a small startup, and they were going to exhibit at a large international show, and they wanted to just do in their 10 by 10, they just wanted to have like a pop-up banner, and that was it for their, and I'm like, you're going to need a bigger presence. Otherwise, nobody's going to talk to you because you're going to just be invisible on the show
Yeah.
floor.
Yeah. I mean, you could get away with that if you had an incredible strategy for sponsorship and booth staffing and really marketed yourself pre-show, during show, and post-show, right? But most of our exhibitors are spending every dollar they have in just getting there. And their expectation is that the show organizer is providing their target audience on the show floor and creating opportunities for them to market themselves to their target audience. If the show organizer is not providing valuable marketing tools, they're not having a good experience and they won't be back.
Exactly. Exactly. And the thing is, I mean, for a show, because, as you know, and a lot of people listening probably understand that I work with both. I work with the show organizer and the exhibitors, and I usually am a bridge that helps to bring the two together and help them really work together in a partnership. And I always tell show organizers, it's not that difficult really to add some kind of marketing tools in there, having a way that you can easily share or repost social media posts about exhibitors, having a way, giving away, letting exhibitors have a way that they can create like customized banners. It's like, come see us in booth number, whatever. They could design that and then share that out in social media or on their website or whatever. These are not tools that cost billions of dollars to
No.
create.
And exhibitors are asking for these tools and saying that they're willing to spend money on these tools if they didn't have to spend the exorbitant amount of money that they're spending on show services. A
Right.
lot of the verbatims in our research talk about the frustration from exhibitors that they feel like they're being nickel and dimed. They feel like they're being charged for every little single thing they want to do. They feel like the organizer is ripping them off. These are all things that they're saying, and it's all directed at the show organizer. So there is a
Yet the
need
costs
for,
are coming from the show services, but they're blaming the show organizer.
exactly. And the show organizer wants the revenue from sponsorships. So if they can negotiate the show service costs on behalf of the exhibitor, it frees up funding for the exhibitor to spend with the show organizer, whether that's on sponsorships or marketing, and provides more value from what the exhibitor is bringing to the show to the attendee. So
Right.
it really does become a win-win for those three parties. And for the show services suppliers, they are still able to make a profit from services, and particularly when those services provide value to the exhibitor.
Right. Right. Well, and I think the other thing, and I know this is one of the complaints that came up in the report as well, is the exhibitors are frustrated because they feel like, and I've heard this for years, this is not anything new, but so many times they feel like that their relationship to the show organizer ends as soon as they sign that check and agree to that exhibit space. And I
Yes.
think that show organizers need to recognize that that is not the end of the conversation. That is the beginning of the conversation. Providing tools. Like, for example, one of my show organizer clients just this year, we added an additional webinar that was just for first time exhibitors. And we walked them through all of the things that they probably don't know, like, tips for move in and how to work with and what show services vendors they need to contact, if they need Wi-Fi or they need electricity, or who are you going to call, all of those kinds of things. Show organizers need to step back and realize that they could be doing so much more to educate and communicate with their exhibitors and really building that relationship. Because if you build a great relationship with a first time exhibitor, they're going to come back over and over and over.
Yeah, that's right. In the research, what we see is that exhibitors are telling us they feel valued during the event. Their participation at the event, I think it's 70% of exhibitors are saying, I feel valued while I'm at the event. Great. But around half of exhibitors tell us that they don't believe that they're having open and honest conversations with their show organizer. They don't believe they're getting valuable marketing tools. And over half have said that they don't believe that the show organizer cares about their relationship after the event. So they are really pointing out here that there is a challenge, and it's a significant group of exhibitors that are expressing this. So, it may be 50-50 on some of these responses, but again, 50% is a huge part of your business.
Well, and what I find interesting too is, like you said at the beginning, these are exhibitors and marketers that have been going to shows for years. They're not necessarily first-time exhibitors that are feeling like, well, that show really didn't value me, I'm not going to go back. These are people that have been exhibiting for years and years, maybe been going to the same show for a decade or more, and they're still not feeling valued. So, I mean, that speaks volumes to the fact that something is, there's some disconnect along the way.
Yeah, there is. And we see a pretty significant gap between what exhibitors are saying about their challenges and what show organizers think the exhibitors' challenges are. There was some research that Evolio Marketing did with show organizers to understand what are the biggest complaints that show organizers hear from their exhibitors. And 64% said that their exhibitors need greater ROI. Speaks to the value equation, right? Speaks to that same stat that we had, around 57% wanting to be able to measure results. So they in that respect, they are on par. But the other complaints that show organizers hear about is exhibit space costs, 51%, move in and move out costs, 43%, sponsorship costs, 23%. What's a shame about this data is that they're looking at it solely from their own revenue and their own services to the exhibitor. They're not considering the complaints from their exhibitor when it relates to show services or other suppliers on the show floor. You can see that it's a very narrow view of what exhibitors are complaining about. Show organizers need to kind of expand and broaden their view of what exhibitors need beyond just the items that they are providing.
Well, and like you said, they're kind of that bridge between the exhibitor and the show services. So again, they need to be listening to both sides of that conversation and trying to help to, they can't ultimately change what show services companies are doing, but they can hopefully at least help be an advocate for their exhibitors in those discussions.
And they can change more than they think they can. Remember that the show organizer hires the general service contractor and the suppliers to work for them. So they set the rules. There are union rules that they have to abide by and venue rules, sure. But the show organizer can say to their suppliers, we want X dollars for exhibitor services. We want a certain move in, move out time. We want certain minimums for our labor calls. As long as those adhere to union regulations or venue regulations, they have the power to negotiate these details with their suppliers, and they're in charge. It's their show.
Yeah,
So
true.
this idea that they are outsourcing the show to a supplier community and they can just be hands off on it after that is completely inaccurate. So it requires time and effort, which I realize a lot of us don't have, right? Show organizers are strapped and overwhelmed just as much as everybody else, but putting more effort on managing your suppliers and really looking at your rules and regulations will do so much to driving revenue for your organization.
I think that's a really good point. It's like they can't control what the suppliers are doing, but they can definitely have a voice and negotiate, and like you said, try to put some solutions in place. What are some other things, speaking of solutions, what are some other things are you seeing other ideas that shows are implementing to benefit their exhibitors?
You know, we have been talking with a few show organizers that have shared with us that they are trying new things. I think innovation is going to be really important, especially with the advent of AI and all of the things that are shifting with AI. As show organizers are looking at ways to incorporate AI for matchmaking services or to manage some of the logistical details that always trip up an exhibitor, I think innovation is going to be really key for show organizers moving forward. Solutions that the exhibitor advocate recommends, really the number one thing that a show organizer can do is to implement an exhibitor advisory council. It allows the organizer to listen to their exhibitors, to understand what their needs are, because there's not a one size fits all solution for everybody. Mm-hmm. So rather than me telling you, here's the exact thing you have to go do, my advice is go ask your exhibitors what you need to do. They will tell you. And I think when we open up that dialogue, the show organizer finds new ways that they can provide value to their exhibitors. So we really believe that every show should have a functioning exhibitor advisory council.
Well, and we talked about that much more in depth in one of our previous interviews on Trade Show Insights. So I will link back to that in the show notes as well, because the exhibitor advocate has some great tools along those lines as well. So tell us, Jessica, any final thoughts about what exhibitors should do or what show organizers should do next?
Yeah, it really does come down to collaborating and working together to address the issues that are pervasive in our industry. So the exhibitor advocate is really excited to roll out some new education this year. You're going to see from us opportunities that will help educate both exhibitors on how to navigate these challenges and educate show organizers on the power that they have to address the exhibitors' challenges as well. We have a new membership system that is going to be in place on our website in a couple of months, and it will give us the opportunity to offer peer-to-peer networking on our site. And Great. So we're really excited about the community that's going to be built and how we can share best practices and support exhibitors and show organizers from similar verticals that can share ideas and work towards better ways of working in the future.
I think that's so important because the exhibitors have not really had an organized community to gather around. I mean, I've tried to build community. I know you've tried to build community. It's like having the exhibitor advocate now is going to be like a place for exhibitors to gather and to be able to have their voice heard. So share that link with us. What is the link for people to check out the exhibitor advocate?
It is exhibitoradvocacy.com. It's a one-stop shop. You can find all of our resources and education, and it will be the location for that peer-to-peer networking when that launches in a couple months.
That's awesome. Jessica, thank you so much. You always have wonderful, wonderful things to share with us. I mean, some of this is challenging, but it's also great just to get this conversation started and to really get people rethinking how they, build these relationships, because the whole thing, it is a relationship. It's a partnership between the show organizers and their exhibitors in order to have the greatest success. So thank you so much for being here yet again on Trade Show Insights, Jessica.
Thanks, Marlis.
If you enjoyed today's episode and would like more, you can subscribe to the Trade Show Insights podcast and automatically receive future episodes on your chosen device. Simply search for Trade Show Insights in Apple, Spotify, or virtually anywhere else that podcasts are found, then click the subscribe button. Trade Show Insights is protected by the Creative Commons copyright license. You may feel free to share this recording with colleagues or embed it on your own blog as long as it's shared in its entirety and is not used for commercial purposes. To learn more, please see the link in the sidebar of the show notes at tradeshowinsights.com. Well, that's it for this episode of Trade Show Insights. Be sure to check out our show notes and archives at tradeshowinsights.com. You can also connect with me using the social media links or the contact page on the site. I'm Marlis Arnold. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join us next time for more tools to improve your exhibit results.